So I asked her the question, does running affect your prolapse? Do you feel worse during or after doing your run? And we're not talking, she's not doing marathons. It might be 3K, 5K. So it's just that endorphin, that I'm getting some exercise, I'm doing something for me, I'm getting out the house, I'm breathing in fresh air. But she hadn't asked that question. And this is one small example of what many of you will have experienced, where we put our trust in the caregiver because that's the role. They're telling us, don't do this, don't do that. And we forget. And this is no judgment or criticism. Please take this with love, because we forget we still have a choice. But we feel like we don't. We feel like we don't know. Welcome to Hope for Your Pelvic Floor, the podcast where we have honest conversation and evidence-based solutions for your pelvic health. I'm Claire Sparrow. I'm a second-generation Pilates teacher, educator, and best-selling author. I'm here to help you understand your body better, move with confidence, and finally get answers that make sense. Each week, we'll bust myths, share insights from movement science and pelvic health research, and give you practical steps you can actually use in your everyday life. Because pelvic health isn't just about exercises, it's about reconnecting with yourself, one breath, one choice, and one movement at a time. Let's get started. Today's topic is prolapse isn't dangerous. The way we talk about it is. Now, you know I love a dramatic title and headline, but I'm going to get serious on this one because it really is important that we understand how the medical language can really trigger and influence the dysfunction. So we're going to talk about that. And as always, I'm going to begin with a little Claire shares, because I think my mind is always going with all the different sorts of things, and you're the people to talk to. So this week I've been really thinking a lot about a topic I've actually talked about on the podcast before, which is the Pelvic Health Cafe. And earlier this week I got a little message from someone in Boston who hopes to share the invitation to the upcoming Pelvic Health Cafe to her colleagues and clients and friends in her local area. And it just boggles my mind that we can be reaching so far. You know, often when we meet in the Pelvic Health Cafe, I have someone in Canada, we often have people in America, we have people in Scotland, Wales, Ireland, really genuinely all over the globe. And it's kind of like a pinch me moment, really, because it started with this kind of loose idea of getting women together to be able to open up and have conversations and doing it in real life, to something that I feel like excited we're on the cusp of something bigger, and I want it to be something bigger. I want it to be more than just me hosting this monthly thing online. I imagine pelvic health cafes happening all over the world, following the mission and mantra of our pelvic health cafe, doing it online so it's free and easy for people to access, and women getting the information that they truly deserve. And so this week is just, I felt a bit giddy about the pelvic health cafe, and like we are on the cusp of some exciting change. So if you would like to host a pelvic health cafe, I have no idea what that looks like, because I really am just beginning this idea of it being out there beyond just me, then let me know, reach out, let me know, and let's talk about how that might look. And it's not about the host having all the answers and being a guru or a physio or a doctor or me. It's like anybody who wants to just make space available for women to talk. That's what a host really is. And yeah, reach out, let me know. Let's chat about what might be possible for the Pelvic Health Cafe. I'm really excited about what it could be. And I'm also really aware that it's not something that I can do alone. So it's online, you can join on your phone or some kind of device, and it's completely free. I'll put the link below, and it's on the 27th of June, our next one. So hopefully you will join me there. Now, we're doing a bit of a kind of series about prolapse because it's Prolapse Awareness Month. And, you know, I get very excited, which is a ridiculous thing to get excited about. Hopefully one day we'll never need to be excited about it because everybody will just be talking about it all the time anyway, regardless of there being a special month for it. But hey ho, we are where we are, and I'm really interested in sharing this week about the impact of the diagnosis. Those words, you have prolapse, and what that information and the lack of information following triggers, what that does for us when we get that diagnosis. And you know, you've heard me talk in the podcast before about my own experience and how I just felt like I had failed my body had failed me, I was less of a woman, I was less of a Pilates teacher, and it really affected my mental health, and then it affected my body because I was scared all the time, scared of doing anything, and was I going to do this and was that going to make it worse? And this is what I see all the time, that it's just so frustrating because most women, when they finally get a diagnosis of prolapse, they're given a long list of things to avoid. So we're told, don't lift heavy things, don't run, don't jump, don't jog, don't do this, don't do that. And my gosh, what happens is we're being told not to do something, whether or not your particular prolapse has been worsened, your symptoms have been worsened by that activity or not. It's bonkers, isn't it? Like, I have a brilliant story. I had a lady that I worked with who was told not to jog, and she was a relatively new mum, and she was told not to run. There's a commercial in the UK just now about running and the runner's high. I just want to get high, and that thing of you can just put your running shoes on and go, and there's no cost, you don't have to organise anything, you don't have to plan ahead, you can just literally put the running shoes on and go. It's easy, it's accessible, and that's really important, especially when you're a new mum. You need that ease. And so she was told, you know, you need to avoid this, that and the next thing, don't run. And it was soul destroying, and she's not the only one. There's so many women like this, and it started to make her more worried about everything else that she was doing. So I asked her the question, does running affect your prolapse? Do you feel worse during or after doing your run? And we're not talking, she's not doing marathons. It might be 3K, 5K. So it's just that endorphin, that I'm getting some exercise, I'm doing something for me, I'm getting out the house, I'm breathing in fresh air. But she hadn't asked that question. And this is one small example of what many of you will have experienced, where we put our trust in the caregiver because that's the role. They're telling us don't do this, don't do that. And we forget. And this is no judgment or criticism. Please take this with love, because we forget we still have a choice. But we feel like we don't. We feel like we don't know. And so, you know, I've talked about this before, you know, in whole body pelvic health, I invite you to ask yourself to take ownership and choose and learn about yourself so that you can decide. And the reality is, for this beautiful, amazing young woman, was it didn't make her symptoms worse. She just hadn't stopped to ask, because we're just in that situation of, well, I'm told not to do it, I'm not going to do it. So when I proposed the question, she gave it a go. And it was fine. And she's also doing whole body pelvic health. She's also working on releasing unnecessary tension, working on the coordination of her breath, making sure she's got full range of movement in her body so that her pelvic floor, our body is in optimal condition for her pelvic floor to function. It's in balance so her pelvic floor can function. She's not just doing running in isolation. So this fear-based advice is what is so damaging, Because a lot of the women that I speak to and I work with, they've maybe spent years not exercising altogether. They've stopped walking the dogs, playing with the kids, gardening, or even socialising because they're just terrified, absolutely terrified of making it worse. And the truth is, doing nothing is often worse than doing something. When you freeze in that state of fear and you're scared of everything, there's so much gripping, not just in your pelvis, in your breathing, in your shoulders. We're creating tension. And that tension, ironically, ends up making your symptoms worse. Because when we're afraid, we're clenching, we're squeezing the organ. And the other bit, I'm just kind of backtracking, is that so many women get the diagnosis, but it's like you've got prolapse, but what kind of prolapse? What degree of prolapse? You're not necessarily even finding out all the information. And because you don't know what questions to even ask to find out. Because I've had countless women who would say, oh, well, I didn't know that there was different types or that there was different degrees of prolapse. So, you can tell I get so passionate about this. If you're watching on YouTube, my arms are all over the place. I'm gesturing like I do. Every time I see a screenshot of myself, my arms are in the air like crazy lady, shaking my arms around. So anyway, moving on. If you've just been diagnosed with prolapse, it can really feel like you're falling apart, like your body's falling apart in your life, because it influences the decisions that you make. It influences how you feel in your day-to-day life, how you make choices. And you leave with the diagnosis with not a lot of information, like I said before, and the recommendation to do pelvic floor exercises, but to avoid, your impact and lifting things and running and all of that. But what if you're a mum of a clingy toddler, or you're going through menopause and you've been told to do impact exercise and you've been told to do weights? Where does that leave you? And so for many women, it just plunges you into an even deeper sense of fear and lack of trust in your own body. Like the flick of, I always think about it, and I remember walking along the corridor right after my diagnosis, and it was like someone had flicked a switch, literally just turned a switch from me being able to do whatever I wanted to do to then feeling like there is nothing I can do. Everything I've known in my life before, it's gone, and I can't do that. I just felt fear of every activity. And I'll never forget that, because I crumpled. I could feel my body tensing around the hips, scrunching into my tummy, scrunching into my chest and shoulders in that fear. And that fear can change how your pelvic floor functions. And it's the absolute enemy of a good functioning and self-healing pelvic floor. And I'm going to explain a little bit more detail why that is. And the big reason is that fear triggers your fight or flight response. It gets you into that panic, urgency mode. And even like I remember, talking about this a bit in the book, and as I say the words now, I can feel myself going back there. I can feel that tense, the tension coming through my pelvic floor. So what that does in your body, like literally just not even for fear related to pelvic health and your prolapse, just in life in general, that fight or flight response makes you tense. One of the places that we tense up most when we're in fight or flight is around the hips, is around the pelvis. And the pelvic floor muscles are a huge part of that. And when they're tensing, they can't lengthen and recoil the way they're designed to. And when they're tensing, they're constricting the organ, which makes the organ displace more. It also makes you feel the organ more. So it's absolutely vital that we find ways out of that. And I'm going to give you some really simple examples. One of the other things that happens in fight or flight is shallow breathing. Really shallow, like short, shallow upper respiratory. We call it upper respiratory breathing, when it's like in your neck, in your collarbones, it's up high up here. And that means that you're not getting the pelvic floor coordination that comes from normal diaphragmatic breathing. So we disconnect from our pelvic floor in that way. And then there's also, and I'm sure you can relate to this, that heightened like hypervigilance, hyper awareness of your symptoms, because the tension makes them feel compressed. Like I said before, you feel them more. So then because you feel them more, you worry about it more. It becomes more tight. You worry more. It becomes a vicious cycle, a vicious circle of that tension. And then, of course, we get into avoidance. We begin avoiding things. Some people avoid going to the toilet. Some people avoid running. Some people avoid intimacy. And all of that avoidance becomes lack of movement and lack of potential for your pelvic floor to work normally. And the big thing is that it really is life limiting. You're limiting then your choices, because you're in that fight or flight. Can't move on. You can't move out into the world and do these things. And it's hugely emotional, and not just emotional, it's neuromuscular. So we're breaking down that coordination. Feel a bit frowny and sad at even just explaining these things, but it's important. I think it's important that we recognize, that we know, that I say the things that you don't know, so that you know, and then you are empowered. You have the information to be autonomous and do something about it. So the first thing that I would recommend you do is calm your nervous system down. So getting out of that fight or flight response. And really simple things. I thought as I planned this episode, they're going to be bored of listening to me telling them to breathe. But the honest truth is, breath is key. And so many people I've worked with, all we've had to do is address the breathing and pelvic floor has followed. So this is super simple and very effective. So just slow your breath down. Let your belly soften as you inhale. It's not a force. You're not pushing and distending your belly. It's just gentle exhale. Inhale even. And also a gentle exhale as well. When you exhale though, to make sure that the inhale is true diaphragm, true downward inhale, you do need to exhale completely. Oftentimes we're not letting all the air out. Joseph Pilates talks about wringing out every last atom of breath, and that's really important. And then look up a grounding meditation. I use loads of different meditations on Spotify to really help me to drop into the parasympathetic and get out of that stress state. Because even just from life events, we get stressed and we need to do that. So it's really important. And then the other thing that's really important is go back and listen to this podcast series about what Prolapse is. And if you haven't already, sign up for Prolapse Awareness Month so you get all the free lessons and classes with me, because knowledge really is power, and you can actually switch out of that fight or flight just by knowing there's hope. And you know I'm the voice of hope. I am here for it. And if you have more power, more information, you're going to have hope. Once you've started to reset your nervous system, you can start to build more trust in your pelvic floor. So, you know, I always say you've got to let it go, let it go, let it go, like the Disney anthem. When you start to notice yourself tensing up, just let it go. Give yourself permission to let it go. Less worrying, less gripping, and more trust. And then use movement. Like there's lots on here on YouTube. Join Pelvic Health online. Anything that will actually focus on release and integration and coordination, not just squeezing. Work with your whole body, because that's what's going to give you true, honest trust and support, because your pelvic floor does not work in isolation. It doesn't work alone. And then, of course, like the example of the lady that I worked with who'd been told not to run and then asked herself, oh, does that actually even make my symptoms worse? Focus on what you can do. So do move. It's really important to move. And there's always something you can do. So focus on what you can do. You get to decide, does it actually make my symptoms worse? Have I just been told it might make them worse? What is true for you is not the same truth for everyone. So you get to choose. Simple movements like walking, climbing some stairs, or Pilates. Yes, really, I know. Start with what feels good, what feels doable, and celebrate the small wins along the way. You know, if you avoid just doing the normal things, it can actually make it harder to progress and take back control and have confidence. So do find the things. Yeah, find the things that you really, really can do. All right. Golly, that's a lot of information, isn't it? But I wanted you to understand today just how negative the diagnosis can be and how impactful it is on your nervous system and on your pelvic floor, and that there is simple things that you can do that will help you to regain that control over and get out of your fight or flight response. So what I'd love you to do is to go ahead and join, if you haven't already, the Prolapse Awareness Month. We'll pop the link below so you can go ahead and join there. Also, go back and listen to the episodes in this Prolapse series so you get involved or get informed, and then get involved by joining the conversation. We've got so much to talk about. You can go ahead and join our Facebook community. I'll link to it below, because this is a safe, closed space. You can come in and chat regularly and support each other. And you can come to the Pelvic Health Cafe. 27th of June is our next one. It's completely free. Anybody can come, so please do that. So if you have felt prolapse has been part of your story, I really want you to know that it isn't defining who you are. It's not going to define who you are forever. It's something that you can really learn to manage, to take back control of, to restore, to recover from. No prolapse is the same. So it's really important that you ask yourself how it is for you, so that we don't get lost in the fear-based language imposed upon us. So with the right tools, the right support, and the right mindset, you can move from fearful to free. And I'm here to support you, your voice of hope along the way. So thank you for tuning in to Hope for Your Pelvic Floor. In this episode, I hope you find something that resonates with you. And if you do, please subscribe, rate, review, do all the things, share with someone who needs it. It does really, really help other women find the podcast. And of course, if you want more support from me, you can reach out at wholebodypelvichealth.co.uk. And remember, you can always ask for more from your pelvic floor, and I'll be here, your voice of hope, every step of the way. Bye for now.